Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I've got with me one of my favorite people in the world to chitty chat and gossip with, Andrew Lownie, who is the ultimate royal biographer. He also wrote pretty much the monolith book about Prince Andrew and some of the royals, which is entitled, I'm going to try to get this up here, you guys are going to have to forgive me, it's called entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. There it is, in a very small little thing right by Andrew's head. If you guys have not read it, you absolutely should. It's fascinating. And here's the deal, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I got a
It's a pleasure.
ton of questions for you. And let's start with this most recent Epstein dump. Okay, so all these files came out. What were the three biggest things that shocked you and that you think will shatter the status quo?
Well, I suppose the first thing is we've got clear evidence of women being trafficked to Andrew. So there's a good case for the Metropolitan Police to reopen their case against Andrew. They're going after on sex, I would say on sex trafficking charges, but they're going after Peter Mandelson, which is also part of these disclosures, for what he's done, which is leak classified information. Well, Andrew did that. I talk about it. So let's get him under the misconduct in public office as well. So that's one. Number two, there's Sarah Ferguson. We knew that she was close to Epstein. We didn't know she wanted to marry him or that he was like her lost brother. I think what's extraordinary is there she is getting freebie tickets for her children and herself to go and see him. And then he buys her a business class and the children an economy. And she wants him to upgrade her to first and the children to business. And this is just a classic example of Fergie the leech.
Well, and also, how old were the kids at the time?
2009, so 20.
Okay. All right. So we're not talking little, but we are talking in the age range that Epstein liked. I mean,
well, that's one of the other extraordinary things that they were, sending photographs and how the children and stuff. These children. I mean, it's one of the first things that one of the first people he saw when he came out of prison, or rather, what he pretended was prison. And there she was with her two daughters, and she had a habit of taking them to see sex offenders. P. Diddy, Peter, what's the guy in the Bahamas?
Well, I mean, her Rolodex was just the Hall of Fame for grossness. We do have a question just before we go on. Do you get threats?
Well, I had someone threatening to kill me just today, but there's a long line. I told them they have to take their place in the line. That I don't want anyone jumping the queue.
How many threats have you gotten, and have you ever actually felt threatened?
No, I got pretty broad shoulders. I was told by someone the other day that it would be a very simple matter to get rid of me. They'd just come up with a syringe, give me some, basically just stick it in the side of me as I went by, and I would collapse from a heart attack. Oh. So if that happens, it's not a heart attack. I've been attacked.
You've been Putined, basically.
I've been Putined, yeah. So
wow. So along with the shockers, there were a bunch of photographs, and I'm going to put up a tiny one right by your head. You guys are going to have to, again, deal with me. While, it's Andrew.
Oh, yes. It's that look, isn't it?
Leaning over a girl and just looking like a wolf, like looking like he's just
this is
so
lunch.
Pleased with himself.
Yeah. Extraordinary. And I have wondered, is this poor girl absolutely terrified as she lies there thinking, what is this? Or is she joining in the fun? I mean, he's also barefoot. This isn't at Epstein's home. But yeah, I mean, I wish we could someday see these girls and just see how old they are. But it is pretty creepy. It's not a good look, I have to say.
No, and by the way, with these photos, we talked briefly about this, and we've talked before, when his title was taken away, and before the dump, the Met had come out and said, "No, no, we're not going to investigate Andrew. We're fine." Now they've come out and said, "Well, we're going to investigate Jess Staley." And the other people, other British people who are mentioned. Why not Andrew? I mean, Keir Starmer came out and said the prime minister said he should be investigated. A, do you think that was with Charles's knowledge that he said that? And B, why isn't he being investigated? Do you think they'll change their tune?
Yeah, well, I mean, lots of things there. We've got to remember that Andrew is a prince of the blood, and the rule of law doesn't apply to him.
What?
I had someone, actually, a member of staff, told one of my sources last week he doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He just feels he's been victimized. Yeah, we have a rule in this country that if you're rich and famous, then you can get round the legal system. That I'm afraid that's the case. But it is interesting. All the other names that are coming up, there's Bill Gates and Richard Branson and others. So lots of names that have been thrown around for a while. But it's interesting to see more concrete detail. We have to remember.
Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything about Richard Branson and Prince Andrew possibly being together?
Well, I mean, I think that Sarah Ferguson may well be staying on Necker Island at the moment. I mean, Branson is a very close friend of hers. He's always offering her accommodation.
Wait, what? Sarah Ferguson, right now, as you and I speak, is hanging out with Richard Branson on Necker Island. He's the one giving her shelter.
Possibly. I mean, that's the rumor. But if we remember, Sarah Ransom, which is one of Epstein's victims, claimed that she was trafficked to Richard Branson. He then threatened to sue her. She retracted it. And then afterwards, she doubled down on it. So Richard Branson's name, I mean, I've been offered over the years as an agent to countless stories of Richard Branson's activities. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he's saying, "Can I join the harem?" I mean, he's a well-known reputation for liking the ladies, shall we say. So it's all the familiar names are coming up. It doesn't surprise me, some of the people that are emerging. I mean, what strikes me as odd is none of these guys seem to have condoms. They're either producing children. I don't know how many Epstein had, but there's Bill Gates having to get antibiotics because he hasn't taken precautions.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, but here's the deal. You're correct. I mean, it's another example of rules for thee, but not for me, right? Everyone else wear condoms. We're going to deliver them for free. However, we're giving each other the same STD back and forth, back and forth. But let's get back to the royal family.
Yeah.
What is now, do you think Sarah Ferguson will be investigated?
Well, it's interesting that she's closed Sarah's Trust, her charity. I mean, this is a sort of preemptive strike here. I mean, she's clearly been struck off from one of the charities she supported, but this is her own charity. As far as I remember, her daughter's charity, the Anti-Slavery Collective, was getting money from Sarah's Trust. It wasn't really spending any of it. We've got a huge problem with grooming gangs in this country, which is obvious. Focus for something like the Anti-Slavery Collective, and that wasn't spending it on that. But yeah, I think it's very interesting that that charity's been closed. Lots of questions about how she used charities for her own social ambitions, how they often didn't find there was much money in it at the end of it once she'd taken her five-star accommodation and first-class flights out of it. And a lot of sort of laundering reputations. She was always competing with Diana, who was the biggest St. Teresa around, and charities gave her this opportunity. Yep. But to be fair to her, there were moments when she clearly had a strong empathy with children. She did do some good. She did raise money, and she did affect change. And that's one of the sadnesses that they did good work. Some of these things, but she always spoils things by not behaving well.
I mean, do you think, but here's the deal. Now that the DOJ has dumped all these documents, and this is just one of the dumps that's going to happen, because apparently this is just like 4% of all the stuff they have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think now the Metropolitan Police will be forced to take action and look into Andrew and Sarah and Richard Branson?
Well, I think it's very interesting that they said they're going to look into Mandelson. I think if they say nothing to see here, we've looked and we're not going to be able to bring a case, then they'll do the same with all the others. If they do pursue the Mandelson case, then I think there's a very strong argument that the others are equally culpable in their different ways, and they need to pursue the case there.
But what is the difference between Mandelson, Andrew, Fergie, and Richard Branson?
Well, I mean, they're bringing the case against Mandelson on misconduct in public office, and I think they may play with semantics and say that Andrew, as a trade envoy, wasn't a civil servant, for example, but he was a public official. He was reporting back to the Department of Trade and the Foreign Office. And so one could argue that he was a public official and he did abuse that position. We have plenty of instances of him not promoting British trade, but promoting Greek water companies in Kazakhstan. We have stories of $5 million in a suitcase in Kazakhstan again. We have the evidence that we've been presented of him persuading a public official, his police protection officer, to dig the dirt up on Virginia Giuffre. We have him, I'm trying to think all the things that he's been doing. I mean, he has brought the office into disrepute by his behavior. Oh, yeah, giving away classified information to his business advisor, David Rowland, in China and over the sale of an Islamic bank. So if they're going after Mandelson, I think it's going to be very hard not to go after Andrew.
Well, especially because in the document dump, there was stuff about Andrew talking about Afghanistan and trying to do deals in Afghanistan with Epstein. I mean, what was that about? And also, isn't a prince a public office?
Well, not a prince's public office, but as a trade envoy, he was seen as paid for by the taxpayer. I mean, we covered all his costs, and he reported to a civil service department. So I would argue that he was. They may find ways around that. Whether Andrew will actually face trial, I think is very unlikely. We know in the previous occasion when Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's butler, was on trial for taking her underwear and various things for safeguarding, and then selling it in the States, that trial was shut down because the last thing the royals want is any discussion of royal life from an insider. So I think Andrew will be on the first private jet to Abu Dhabi if that happens. So we're not going to see justice. It'll be exactly like Juan Carlos. He will disappear.
But this is outrageous. I mean, literally outrageous. I have a British passport. I'm American as well. But if I was living in England right now, my head would be on fire with rage and fury. Andrew, because of who his mother was and just the luck of the draw of birth, gets to literally do anything and now live for free on King Charles's dime. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, I mean, in some ways, I feel sorry for Fergie. She's been cast out. She's fighting now, I think, to get a stipend from Charles to keep her quiet. But Andrew, I mean, he complains. He doesn't like the mosquitoes and the size of the house. But I mean, he's been given a 5-bedroom house and a stipend for behaving badly, just to sort of keep him quiet. But that's the way that the cookie crumbles. I mean, they're very nervous. I think the royals that Andrew and Fergie, if they go rogue, could be very damaging.
Right. It's better to keep your enemies close, I suppose.
Yeah. But whether anyone's going to pay Fergie sums of money for what the story she's going to tell, I just don't know. I mean, my experience researching her was that you couldn't believe a single word either she or Andrew said. And they actually told lies when they didn't even need to tell lies. So, and even looking at the books, previous books, I mean, they're filled with lies.
This is infuriating. I mean, I could go on for hours about how this is not right. But what are your sources telling you now about what Andrew is thinking of doing and what will happen to Sarah Ferguson?
Well, there's a big tug of war going on. Charles wants him in Norfolk, where he thinks he can keep an eye on him, and Andrew wants to go for the Sun and the the virgins in Dubai. And I think Andrew's going to win. On the question of Sarah Ferguson, as I say, no one quite knows where she's gone. I mean, to say the rumor is that she's with Richard Branson in Necker Island. She has a lot of
It blows my
mates
mind, by
like
the way.
that. Sorry?
Blows my mind. But go on.
Right.
Sorry.
But also, I mean, you know, she's still, I suspect, going to be able to do business in the Middle East and China and places. So, you know, this Eugenie figure may still pop up. You would think she's finished, and I think probably she is finished, but you never know with her. She's the Becky Sharp of our day.
Do you think if they leave, if Andrew goes to Abu Dhabi, as you say, I know there's lots of talk about Bahrain, but Bahrain is pretty Islamic at this point. I agree with you on Abu Dhabi. If he goes to Abu Dhabi, will he be allowed to come back? It's kind of like, look at King Juan Carlos. He moved to the UAE and he literally has to ask permission to come back to Spain, which I don't think he's been allowed, or permission to go to, you know, like royal celebrations, which of course he's not allowed. But will Andrew be able to fly in and out of Britain once he leaves?
Funny enough, I had dinner with one of Juan Carlos's mistresses the other day, as one does, and he's flying all over the place. So I don't think that rule is applying. And I mean, Andrew will have access to private jets from some of his mates, including in the Middle East, and he will just fly in and out of various private airports and doing exactly as he wants. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. And if necessary, he can meet in middle spots like Switzerland, Portugal, and other places. So I don't think his activities are going to be curtailed at all by his new situation.
But the other thing is, why are all these Middle Eastern guys okay with what's going on with these women? And also, you and I both know Andrew still has a supportive group in England with which he is still doing the shooting parties. I believe one happened a week or two ago.
Yes, there's a tight group. I mean, of the shooting parties. I mean, the shooting season is about to finish, so that's one of the reasons that he might disappear. There is a network there, though I was told that he'd been sleeping with one of his best friend's wives, which may have spoilt things a bit.
Oh my God. What?
So,
are you kidding me?
So one's never surprised.
With his best friend's wife, and his best friend is supporting him. So he's basically SHITTIing the bed. The only bed that will have him.
Well, wow. I mean, this is what's so extraordinary. I mean, you know, we have lots of cuckolded husbands who are very happy to service the royals. This is part of our deferential, sycophantic society here. You've got to remember, we're still in the medieval period.
Wow. Okay, sorry, mind blown. Why are the Middle Eastern guys so okay with these guys who the Western world are just kind of like, get out, we hate you?
Well, I mean, in some ways, Andrew's one of the few people who can make people like MBS look good. I mean, launder his reputation. You know, at least Andrew hasn't chopped up journalists yet. So no, I think it's they're all mates together. They're I mean, he's treated like a son there. They have very much the same attitude towards women, as sort of droit de seigneur. And Andrew doesn't drink, so that will go down well there.
What? He's doing all this sober?
Yes, that's what's so extraordinary. I know. One will slightly wonders. I mean, there are lots of rumors that he takes drugs, and that there's a certain look at the eyes there, and people have tried to nail that. No one's ever been able to do that.
I believe you're talking about this look right here, up in the tiny, tiny photo. Sorry, guys, I can't figure out my StreamYard yet. That photo there with that kind of crazed look, yes.
And someone said to me that Fergie had told them that she'd given up coke when she married Andrew, so maybe that's all stopped.
Gee, cry me a river. That is bonkers. To everyone who's watching right now, I am going to do question time at the end because it's hard to pay attention and really have my mind blown while I'm focusing on Andrew. So I'll give us a couple minutes at the end to just start asking questions. Let's talk about Beatrice and Eugenie. So there was a report today that Eugenie's cut him off for good this time. There were reports that she'd cut him off before, but was still doing back channels. Do you think the girls will cut him off now? And what do you think is going to happen to these girls? Because aren't they kind of implicated as well?
No, absolutely, and I think that I'm going to have material on that in my paperback, and I think what King would be very unwise to embrace them too tightly, because I think they
Right.
could prove to be an embarrassment. I don't think there's a problem. I mean, at the moment, the deal was that they would basically pass the baton was passed on to the daughters. Andrew and Fergie would go quietly from Royal Lodge. The daughters, this is my theory, but the daughters would remain princesses. They'd be invited to Sandringham. They would, as a result, still be able to trade on these associations for their business activities in the Middle East. And everyone's focus would be on the parents, and they could kind of get on with it. So I think that's possibly what's happening. It doesn't mean that they lose contact with their parents in private. So, I don't think they had to make a choice. They decided to play the public role. I mean, my own advice, and if I'd been a reputation person, would be basically don't get involved with Sandringham, don't get involved with your parents, stick with your family, give up your title, and keep your nose clean. But I think being the Yorks, they will continue to behave as they have done, thinking they'll get away with it. I mean, we've seen even recently, there was Beatrice at Davos, that great international stateswoman.
By the way, why was she in Davos? Why was Beatrice, who also, by the way, spent the last couple of months, she's been traveling quite a bit. I think it was the UAE to Saudi, Qatar. She's doing the Middle Eastern rounds, if you will. And then she's in Davos. And I get that her day job is supposedly working for a bank. I mean, I'm not asking her to manage my money anytime soon. But what the hell is she doing in Davos?
Well, I mean, her job is client relations, so it's all about smoozing with people, and so she's got this job, as is Eugenie with Hauser and Worth, because of their contacts book, and they got their contacts book clearly from their parents. That's why they were taken to meet all these people, and they don't want to lose that. So I think that we're going to continue to see them doing things slightly more discreetly, perhaps, than they have in the past. But you're absolutely right. What is she doing? She claims to be a big expert on AI and various things. But if you watch her interviews, they're pretty inane. She's speaking at all sorts of conferences with some very high-profile people. I mean, Harry's speaking at one of these conferences with her.
Well, that's like Harry speaking about real estate. The guy doesn't know how to write a check. He doesn't even know how to press a button saying "pay bill."
These are the two great intellectuals of the royal family. So. But you can see, if you're an organizer and you want a bit of publicity, you stick them on your speaker panel, and you'll get a lot of attention. And that's what they've been able to capitalize for years. I mean, but I think the children are fine. I think they I'm not sure any of this comes as any surprise to them.
Right. Do you think Beatrice will cut off her parents publicly? She's the one who got Andrew to do the BBC interview in the first place. She's the one who, just had the baby. He went to the shower, and, she's been the kind of public holdout in cutting off parents.
Yeah, well, she's always been very close to them. I don't think either of them are going to break links. They'll just see them in private. And this is all about reputation saving, particularly with Eugenie's anti-slavery collective. She can't be seen to be associating with the two. But I don't think that I think, as with all things with the royals, what goes on publicly and what goes on privately are two very different things. So this is all stage management.
Okay, so we do have a question that I saw real quickly, and I as well thought this until you told me otherwise. Some people are saying, well, they're just the daughters. They don't know what their parents are doing. They can't, all this stuff, they're not involved. This is kind of Prince or King Charles's line as well. They're not involved. It's all right. Well, what do you have to say to that? Because you've also discussed that they collect jewelry as well from randos.
Exactly. I mean, there's been a big PR campaign. Andrew's a victim. It's gone too far. Edward and Anne, are counseling him. He's suicidal. The children are innocent, etc. I mean, there's a huge PR operation going on. The reality is, we know, for example, from the Selman Turk case in 2022, that money was being fenced through the children's accounts, which they couldn't explain. We know that, as you say, that one of the things one of the ways they're paid is some jewelry, £18,000 necklace to Beatrice from someone she didn't know as a birthday present. And those are just the things that we know about. So I don't think there's any doubt this is a family business. So I would just caution people from following that view. You know, there's a long history of their involvement with some pretty dubious people. I mean, what is Beatrice doing promoting Saudi banks? It's not part of her job. And one has to ask, why is the king giving her some royal duties? I mean, it was a real push by Andrew. First of all, on status grounds, he didn't want them to lose their police protection. There was no risk there to them. Then he was very keen that they should be working royals, and people fought against that. You know, and I think that's because they know what the girls are like. They're very unpopular in Britain.
Really? What are the girls like?
Well, I think they're quite sweet, Sloaney girls in many ways. Everyone says they're very polite, but you know, I'm afraid the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree here, and I think it's quite instructive that the one person, the one child or grandchild of the Queen that the royal family are pushing as a possible working royal is Princess Louise, who's still at university. So there we have both Beatrice and Eugenie keen to do the job, and no one wants to appoint them. And Princess Louise, who's a rather reluctant to have public duties and wants her own life, is the one who's been pushed to do it. And that's because they trust her, and you know, and they know she's not going to put a foot wrong. I mean, we forget that Beatrice. You talk about Beatrice spending a lot of time on holiday, and we've got to remember that was one of the things in the early days. I mean, you know, even when she took on a new job, she seemed to spend like the first 5 months on holiday on Roman Abramovich's yacht and various things. So these are not, you know, these are slight liabilities, shall we say?
More than slight. Let's get into King Charles. Do you think the Metropolitan Police did not and will not investigate Andrew because of King Charles? Do you think we've talked in the past about how King Charles knew everything about Andrew's behavior? He got a copy of Virginia Giuffre's book 6 months before it hit the public. Do you think he's stopping the investigation?
Well, often these things are done by a nod and a wink, and it's not necessarily by him, but by people working for him. But I think, you know, anyone, it's a bit like judges, just know the way they need to decide cases if they want to have a career. Right. So I suspect a lot of this is kind of self-appointed by various people. I mean, there are scandals around King Charles about cash for honours, Middle Eastern gentlemen giving money to Dumfries House. Yep. And that may be one of the concerns that that Andrew is raising these things. If you make my life difficult, I can make your life difficult. Well, but at the same time, I do think that they're trying to divert attention. I mean, what they don't want is wider questions about royal accountability and transparency raised. I mean, they hate the fact that now Andrew has got the Public Accounts Committee to look at the lease on Crown Estate properties. We have this extraordinary situation where Beatrice and Eugenie have subsidized flats in royal palaces. They're not working royals, which are done up at the public expense. And they have rich husbands and they have other houses. And this is, I think, what people are getting annoyed by, that just the secretive nature of the way they operate. And they operate entirely in their own interests. And in the trope of public duty and private pleasure, I'm afraid they fall into the second category.
I wonder also as well, when hold on, let me get rid of that banner or logo, whatever. Do you think that this is the end of, do you think it's the end of King Charles? So I've been talking to Tom Sykes, and, you know, it's Tom's view that Charles is already weakened and that this is a nail in the coffin, and it might not happen tomorrow. It might not happen in a month, but Charles may have to step down.
No, I don't think. I mean, I respect Tom. I think he's brilliantly well connected and very independent-minded and thoughtful. No, I think there's that Charles, I mean, got a lot of kudos when he appeared to act ruthlessly in October, whether that was him or William. There's a lot of briefing going on. And I've read Tom's pieces, and I do largely agree with his analysis of Charles. But I think that Charles has an opportunity here. His reign is going to be defined by the problem of Andrew, and so he needs to solve it. And I think William wants him to solve it. He wants to get a clean slate, clear out the stables, and Charles can basically take the responsibility for this. You know, it's a bit like chancellors of the exchequer. You leave them there because they can take all the hassle before. No one wants that job, and they can they're lightning conductors, and that's sort of what Charles needs to do. William, you know, doesn't want to inherit all these problems, so that's his opportunity, you know, to deal with it ruthlessly. Whether he has the temperament to do that, I just don't. I doubt.
He doesn't.
That's the problem. You know, so the buck gets passed. You know, I think Tom is absolutely right. Charles, in a sense, was in this regent period when the last few years of the Queen's reign. He knew what was going on. He was calling the shots. He could easily have made changes, and it could have been on the Queen's watch. And instead, you know, they let the thing run. This is the constant problem. They just let it drift. Same has happened again. They always kind of hope that something will turn up and they'll be saved. And so we have this problem that's probably going to be passed on to William as well.
But as we've seen it several times, Andrew, Charles thinks he deals with something, but he doesn't. He only deals with this much of it, and then the rest comes back to bite him. It's like a snowball rolling downhill that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and finally squashes him.
Well, I had an interesting, I learned something quite interesting the other day from one of my sources, that one of his senior members of his household had raised not Andrew but another issue, and said, "Look, we need to grasp this. We need to deal with it." And instead of Charles saying, "Yes, I agree. Go and do this or that," or "I leave you to make up your own mind," he then went to another official and said, "Let's get rid of that guy just because he's raised this problem." That's the way he solves the problems. And we've seen it. Tom Bauer wrote about this, Anthony Holden, that he always finds some whipping boy to take responsibility for things that are going wrong, as if somehow that's going to solve the problem.
Oh, wow. So Charles is kind of like, if you try to raise your hand and say, "Hey, this isn't right. Why don't you do this?" He's like, "Get out. You don't fit my narrative."
Yes, I mean, I think that there were two great courtiers in the last 30 years. Patrick Jefferson, who was Diana's secretary and was forced out, and they briefed against him, or rather, he resigned when they sort of briefed against the Bergier case, and a guy called Christopher Geidt, who Andrew and Charles basically pushed out because they thought he was a threat to them. And since then, there have been a series of yes men who basically tell Charles what a wonderful person he is, and he believes it. And if you spent your whole life, as he and Andrew have, that they are the most marvelous people and they can do no wrong, that's what they begin to believe. And that's part of the problem.
What's going on with William? Is he pulling the rest of his hair out? I mean, he doesn't really have that much left.
Well, that's the interesting question. I mean, there are some like Tom saying that William is the guy who's really calling the shots, and there's briefing from the palace saying absolutely not. In fact, he's much more sympathetic to Andrew than everyone else. I mean, my own sources are saying that William doesn't like Andrew. He sees the reputational damage. He's a bit more, particularly he and Catherine are a bit tougher about the whole thing, and that does make sense. So yeah, I think he must be tearing his hair out. I think he's also pretty upset with his father, with all the peace offerings to Harry, the idea that there may be an alternative court set up in Britain now that he's got his security.
Wait, is it official? Because
it's not official, but I think we're moving towards this ridiculous position where, the taxpayer may well be paying for Harry to come back to Britain.
I mean, at what point do the people revolt?
Well, that's the problem. It's very hard to revolt. You can go on social media and you can take to the streets, write letters to the paper, but it doesn't seem to change anything. And so change has to come from parliamentarians, the legal system, and maybe the weight of the media.
Wow.
But even then, It's tough. They know they can just get away with it. I mean, what I should also say is it's because there's so little scrutiny that the royals have been targeted by foreign intelligence services, particularly Andrew and Fergie, because they were so greedy and so vulnerable. And so that is actually the weak point into breaking into British society. And what I find so frustrating is I can't look at files from the 1930s because they say that they will jeopardize royal security. And yet Andrew can bring prostitutes without giving their identity into Buckingham Palace, no questions asked.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Well, okay, so this is to the audience out there. You guys, if you have any questions, you got about 5 minutes to do so. So I'm going to start looking at the comments and putting them up. And Andrew is going to answer your question. Until then, Andrew, so you got questions, start writing them. Andrew, until then, over under when, how much longer is Charles going to be king? Just if we were
I
betting
don't know.
men.
I don't know. I don't know. There are all sorts of there's all sorts of speculation about that.
If you were a betting man and we had, I don't know, $50 on the line, what would you put your $50 on? Would you say under 2 years, under 5, over 5 on on the years Charles has left in his reign?
Certainly under 5.
Under 5.
Yes.
Wow.
So come back.
Do you think that's because of he will step away or he will die?
No, I think he is much younger than we realize. I think there've been lots of rumors. I mean, it may even be 2 years. He has aged considerably in the last few years. I mean, he's a workaholic. He's done, I admire him in many ways. He's a man of great imagination, intellectual curiosity, sensitivity. I think he wants to do the right thing, but there is this weakness there, and that is part of the problem. But yeah, I mean, poor man, he's ill, and he's kept going in some pretty trying situations with his brother and his son.
All right, we've got a question. Hold on, sorry. What was the role of Douglas Lease?
Well, Douglas Lease takes the story of Epstein back and actually creates all sorts of links much earlier.
Who is he?
Well, Douglas Lease was, now I'm trying to remember, you probably know this better than I do. He was one of the...
he was friends with Epstein, right?
Yes.
And wasn't he in intelligence?
I don't know about intelligence, but he was certainly part of the circle. And that's right. His father was in intelligence, wasn't he? That was all part of the links. But, I haven't, to be honest, I haven't looked at Douglas Lease. I look at Epstein really in relation to Sarah and Andrew.
Got it.
So these are minor. But what I have sort of discovered talking to people is the relationship between Andrew, Ghislaine, and Epstein goes back much earlier than people realize. It goes back to the mid-1980s. I've now got that from 2 sources.
Wow.
1985. Andrew admits to late 90s. People say early 90s, but this takes it back at least another five years.
Okay, we've got another question. If Harry wins security once his titles are revoked under the reign of William, will his security be taken too?
Well, I think this is the interesting question. I think one of the things that Andrew negotiated with Charles is that the situation won't change when William becomes king, and that any obligations will be honored. And presumably Harry will be trying to get the same sort of deal. But yeah, it's a good question. Will his titles be taken away? At the moment, the titles haven't really been taken away from Andrew. I mean, he can still call himself the Duke of York, and there's not much one can do. That would require an act of Parliament. And the question is this a good use of parliamentary time? Does this open a can of worms for a wider debate about
so even though it's been announced his titles are taken away, they haven't really been. It's just kind of a PR move.
It's a PR thing.
Wow. So let's say William's king and looks at Harry, Meghan, and the kids and says, all right, your titles are taken away. They can still call themselves whatever they want.
Absolutely.
But the question is, and I get this, if William says your titles are taken away and they've got security, does their security go away with William saying that?
Well, I mean, the argument is that he's at risk whether he's got a title or not.
Mm-mm.
Again, I'm not sure that he is at risk. I mean, there are members of the royal family who are working royals who go to events without any security and just turn up and go
Right.
away. So I don't really buy this argument. I'm amazed that if he does get security, I mean, he's traveled very happily around Ukraine and Nigeria. Um, uh, and not had any problems
Yeah.
and been able to cover that security. So
Right.
I don't see why British taxpayers should be paying for him to come to this country and cause trouble.
I'm not sure anyone does except for Harry, Meghan, and the Labour government. We've got one more question. Is there any chance that Charles might resign so that William can do the hard thing that Charles does not want to do?
No, I mean, I think there's a very strong sense of duty that Charles has, that he's inherited from his parents.
Mm.
It's extraordinary. I mean, Philip and the Queen went on into their 90s. Clearly they kind of slowed down. Charles took over some of the foreign trips. He did the opening of Parliament,
Right.
or there was a sort of dual arrangement. And this, I think, we will move to that as he gets perhaps iller and maybe frailer. We will see William stepping up, hopefully stepping up. I mean, he's known as work shy Willie because he's not so keen on some stuff. But I think we'll see this transitional mode. We've already seen it. I think William is being consulted more. He's certainly been more assertive in what he plans to do in a new reign. It's not the sort of thing you would be publicly broadcasting if you didn't think you were going to take the throne pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate it. This is going to be fascinating. This
Yes,
year is going to be an incredible ride, and I am strapping in
I'm waiting for it.
and
Yes. Well,
getting the
it was
popcorn.
day by day, day by day.
Thank
It
you guys
changes.
so much. And Andrew, I so appreciate you.
Well,
Take
lovely to
care.
talk to you. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.